Hi everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Dan Pardo, and this is Pardo's Turn. Today I'm mixing it up a little bit and forgoing my usual song analysis in favor of a longer interview segment with the great F. Michael Haynie. F originated the role of Augustus Gloop on Broadway in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He was also a long-running Bach in Wicked, was seen in both Jesus Christ Superstar and Peter Pan Live on NBC, and in the original company of Holler If You Hear Me. He is an accomplished singer-songwriter, a member of the Morons, which we'll talk about, and a favorite of Broadway's new class of composers, having performed off-Broadway and regionally in such projects as We Foxes, Dogfight, Found, and Jasper in Deadland. Let's see what he has to say. Hey,
Hi, buddy. How are you?
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks
this
for
very low-tech episode of Pardo's Turn. Out of all the actors I've worked with, you're among the best when it comes to interpreting pop style, and I think that comes from...
That's so kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that means a lot to me.
What's your history with pop music, and how have you used that to kind of inform your career as an actor?
Okay, so my band director is one of my moms, so there's a lot of music in the house. My brother plays drums and is also a singer and an actor. My mom is a piano player, even though she wanted to teach me piano, and I went, no! But my other mom played, she sang on the Grand Ole Opry when she was a kid.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of music influence when I was young, and getting really good records. I started on violin when I was a kid, and then fell in love with brass, and wanted to be a marching band director. That's really all I wanted to do. And then
you did band gigs.
I did band gigs.
So what instrument did you play in?
I played trumpet in band gigs,
Okay.
which was a blast. We actually just released a record. That company of actors was so exciting to work with. It was one of my first big shows that I thought, oh, this is it. This is the show that's going to go to Broadway. In many ways, I think it's a darn shame that it didn't. But I fell in love with music, and I listened to a lot of hip hop when I was a kid. I'm from Georgia, so it was you kind of either had to
Original cast, Holler If You Hear Me.
Original cast, absolutely. So it was you either listened to country and drove a truck, or you listened to hip hop and drove a truck. And I had a Saturn that I shared with my mom. I hate when someone says, I don't like this kind of music. Country's a big one. There's plenty of country that I think is trash, and it's bad songwriting, but so is every other genre has bad songwriting.
Right.
Hypermasculinity happens in every genre. But then you look at, and forgive me if I don't know anything about his personal life, but someone like Garth Brooks. I fell in love with the way that dude sang. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm listening to his live records. I'm listening to all these songs that became famous. And then I swear to God, if you listen to one of his big records, and then you listen to the Spring Awakening cast album, every single vocal trick that those kids, really talented, who are now grown-ass adults, listen to every single vocal trick they do. Someone did it in country 10 years ago. When John Gallagher did Don't Do Sadness, that is, well, I gonna do, and it's a country thing. It just, because popular music is constantly stealing and appropriating from every single genre, that for me, I say I love popular music because it's always developing. But I was very fortunate that I came to New York in a time where music was changing in Broadway, and because Broadway was never an aspiration. I'm not ever gonna get hired to sing oh, that's a beautiful morning. But I have auditioned with me playing guitar and doing a cover of that song and being oh, what a beautiful morning. And then the guy was oh, cool, that's not it at all. I was all right, so I shouldn't do the show. But it was fun coming and hearing a lot of pushback from the community. I remember when the Green Day musical was happening, everyone freaked out. They were no, it doesn't belong on Broadway. It doesn't belong on Broadway. And Holler If You Hear Me, we were talking about earlier, Hugh Jackman and LL Cool J had done the Music Man rap at the Tonys that year, a week or two before we opened. And Conan O'Brien, as a joke, started the hashtag No Rap on Broadway, which was really not good for ticket sales, I don't think. But again, it's what is popular music? Every song in shows that I tend to operates how I like actual pop music to go, which is I don't like a pop song that goes, here's my thesis statement, and now I'm gonna spin around it playing dizzy bats. That's my whole game. There's so many songs that people go oh, it's just a pop song, who cares? And I go, actually, if you listen to it, there is a story happening. And that thrills me, and especially now that so many shows are hey, here's music that was written not for performance all these years later, and someone's going to pay you money to sing it and try to make it into a story.
Right.
That it's it's like a fun jigsaw puzzle of trying to make it happen. There was a writer who wrote those words.
Yeah.
And getting to, if you're fortunate enough to get to work with the writer or something like that, to get to talk to them about like when they wrote it.
Now you just did a show that's similar to that on the West Coast.
I did.
With Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
One, Huey Lewis is like the coolest guy. I've been working on the show for a while.
Is it Pardo Rock and Roll?
Pardo Rock and Roll is the name of the show. Like, he would always like come on the last day of presentations and be like, "Hey, I'm Huey. I had nothing to do with what you're about to see, other than I wrote this music apparently a bunch of long times ago."
Now, the song that you kind of use as your utility song, which we're going to take a look at a little bit. What about that Jason Mraz tune speaks to you, or why is it one of your go-to hits?
I was that kid in college when all of a sudden people were talking about having a rep book. Like, I didn't know what that was. And then what sucked about coming into it all late was I would hear a song that I'd never heard before, which was most of them, and then be like, oh, that's the tune. Like, I remember I heard this song from this show that like I'd never heard of called Children of Eden, and I was like, oh,
Lost in the Wilderness.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, and I'm like, still to this day I actually don't know who sings that.
Oh, Darius DeHaas.
Oh, who now I've worked with, that is hilarious. There was this like, this want that I had to find a song that no one else was going to sing, because that was the thing. Nowadays, I realize how little of a crap anyone gives. Like, no one ever goes like, oh, you went to college here and there? Unless they went there, they don't care.
Yes.
Nor do they go like, oh, wow, that's a deep cut from like some Cantor Ed show no one's ever heard of. Nobody cares. Because for the most part, when the job gets serious, you'll probably sing from the show.
Exactly.
Even new shows. They're like, hey, learn this tomorrow. And you're like, woo! So I wanted to find something that I loved singing, something that I felt was dynamic in storytelling. And it was also important to me that it was something that was versatile. Yeah. Because the number of friends I have that are like, I have 10, 15 different songs. And I need a strong female-led show from the 1970s with an up-tempo but is not in 4. And I'm like, that is dumb. So there was a song from the Mr. A to Z album called Mr. Curiosity. And I love the imagery in the song. You could listen to it and get a lot out of it in different ways. It didn't rely on me saying like, hey, here's some big long note I have at the end, or like, I'm gonna do a million riffs in this song that I've done for, I mean, if I said I've done it for 150 auditions, I'd probably low. But I use it all the time, and it's because I love seeing how versatile it can be. Yeah. And
it becomes like a challenge in of itself.
Absolutely. And so sometimes I've really like chewed all the words and made it very like contemporary musical theater. Yeah. And then sometimes I've really like opened it up and made it much more like lyrical. And then sometimes I'll clip it a little bit more. I can ask the accompanist to like take it a little bit faster, a little bit slower. I don't think there's film of this, but when you sat down to play it the first time, you kind of played it a little more jaunty. Yeah. And that is a version that I've done before. Right. And so it's fun to say, hey, everything you know about like song interp applies, but can apply in so many different ways. Right.
About you, are you killing me? You took care of the cat already, and for those who think it's heavy, is it the truth, or is it only gossip? Call it mystery or anything, just so long as you call me. I sent the message on, did you get it when I left it? See, this catastrophic event wasn't meant to mean no harm, but to say there's nothing wrong is a problem. Oh, I'm looking for love this time, sounding hopeful, but it's making me cry. If love is a mystery, Mr. Curiosity, do come and please, do come and find me. Love is blind, though the timing's never right. Well, who am I to beg for difference? Finding love without an instant, well, I don't mind. At least I try. At least I tried. I tried.
A couple of things I just wanted to talk to you about. You made your Broadway debut doing Wicked as
did do
Bach,
that.
and then you just got off, well, not just, but your last Broadway show was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
So kind of taking two very well-known properties and kind of like turning them on its head. What was it like to kind of take familiar characters and, do these new interpretations?
Bach was
I mean, and Bach is a little less so because the show was running for a while before you.
totally, but that kind of was the kind of the hardest part about it.
Mm-hmm.
That like Brightman, who is one of my best friends in the whole world, I had watched him do that show. I had seen him do it several times because he was there for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They even during my fitting asked me to hold my arms a certain way in a certain costume because they were like, "Oh, when you're wearing that costume, you have to use your arms that way in a certain thing." And I was like, "What?"
You have to tell me how.
Yeah, there was one note I wanted to change in the score, and our music director was so kind, and he was like, "I'll let you try it, but I'm going to guarantee that no one's going to let you change the note." There are so many things that are pressure about recreating a character like that,
Yeah.
and it's honoring everything that's happening around it. I love that show, and then for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Augustus was it's like such a weird, terrifying endeavor because I hadn't originated the character in that it was a book. I hadn't originated the character in that it was a very, very famous Gene Wilder film, which I grew up on.
Yeah.
And then I also didn't invent the character because there was the Johnny Depp reboot. I also hadn't invented the character because the musical had already been done in London by an actual child.
Right.
And so when it came to America and changed directors and they did this big lab, it was kind of like a tryout of like, if adults play the kids, and they didn't tell us the reasons, but they were like, we just want to see how it works. You're kind of doing a long audition, what it feels like for the job. And you want to be indelibly you. Like, I remember in my audition, I knew I either got the job or lost the job in a moment. They gave me a side, which I still to this day laugh. They gave me the side where he falls into the river, and they get sucked up the tube. And so I'm sitting there going like, that's all the lines. And so I went, like making up stuff, like I was doing like a weird like Flula impersonation, who's a German comedian that cracks me up, and so I was like that was what I was doing. Like Jack O'Brien looked at me and he goes, "You're crazy," and I went, "Yes," and I was like, I either got it or didn't get it.
One other thing, you've mentioned your buddy Alex Brightman a couple times.
Yes.
And the two of you, along with Andrew Cover and
Gasparini,
you are a collective called the Morons.
We had been so named, the Morons.
So what's the genesis of that group?
Basically, so Alex and I had done an a cappella group in college and became like best friends out of college. We're like, this is great. And then we met Drew when we were both going to sing in a concert for Drew. And then we were like, oh, this is a recognized game of like, we laugh at the same stuff, we challenge each other artistically, all these things, and they happen really, really quickly. And Kober also kind of he was at the concert, there was one where I didn't make it, and then all of a sudden we all started hanging out, and then we kind of like started going on like dude dates and being like, oh, let's just hang out, and we found that we really like grew as artists while working together adjacently. And then as we started going like, oh, well, Drew's doing a concert of his music, and he goes, well, I'd like to have each of you sing individually. And then like, what if I wrote like a funny, really crass, dirty song at the end? And then we all came out and we did it. And then people would hang out with us afterwards, and then people were like, you guys are idiots. And we're like, correct. And then I don't remember who it was. It might have been Marc Summers, which I know that sounds like I'm absolutely dropping a name, but I absolutely am dropping a name because Marc Summers
like double name Marc Summers?
Yes.
Okay.
So Marc is kind of like an honorary moron.
Okay.
He met Drew they did Grease together. Then he met us. It was all just absolute idiots being idiots again. But someone said they're like Entourage, except they're stupid. And so for a while, someone was like, oh, you're the Morontourage. And then that was just a lot of words, and then people just started calling us the Morons.
So where's the parentheses come in?
The parentheses came in because so we wrote a pilot for a TV show.
Okay.
And we filmed it. The film exists, we've just never shared it with anyone. So instead of going, Haynie and Cover and Gaspo and Brighty all went to the room, we would just go, the Morons. And then that finally got annoying, so I one of us came up with taking the M and putting in parentheses and being like, that means us. Drew made us hats because we're idiots. No, I made us hats that were this, and they had parentheses and an M on them. And then Drew got us t-shirts that I still wear sometimes that have the four of us, a picture from the pilot, that have our names on the back.
Like individual names?
Individual names. And like jerseys.
Yes.
And then still to this day, like I'm doing a concert on March 11th.
Yes.
At the Green Room 42. And I immediately, the second I knew that I was going to do it, I went to the guys. I was like, "Hey, I'd love to have you." I think all three of them are going to try to do it. Brightman's opening this Beetlejuice thing. But again, it's a support group. When there's something that comes up that we want to talk about, like, "Hey, I'm auditioning for this." It's great to have like a litmus test. We are all trying to be better people every single day, and it's nice to have people hold you accountable, especially in this business that is constantly evolving and going forward. So,
Well, this conversation has just been all over the place and awesome, and I love it. And thanks so much for coming on. Check out F on March 11th at the Green Room 42 inside the hotel on 10th Avenue and 41st. So until next time, man.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Mr. Curiosity, do come and please, do come and find